The 54th Beale Chess Festival is well underway. Yesterday was day 2 when the participants of the Grandmaster tournament played the first part of the so-called Grandmaster Triathlon, the Rapid tournament. 8 players, round-robin tournament of 7 rounds, and in the end there was just one winner. It was the American Grandmaster Gata Kamsky, who scored 5.5 points out of 7. Let's have a look at the most exciting games from the tournament. So, all of the action started in the very first round when Arturs Neikšāns, the Indian prodigy, he was meeting the winner of Chess 960 tournament, Kirill Alexeyenko. Here after a4, the young Indian player played quite an amazing move. Bishop takes on f6 to bother the pawn on d5. Now willingly give up this very powerful bishop on f6. Now after bishop takes on f6, rook b1, black started to experience some issues with the pawn on d5. Now knight e7 was played here, and after b takes on e4, black started to experience some issues to defend the pawn on b7. Now after queen d7, Sarn found a very nice resource to play c4, because after recapture, knight c4, knight b6 is going to be a problem for black. The same applies for rook takes on b7, winning the pawn for free. Now the Russian GM tried to complicate matters by playing bishop g5, but after knight takes, bishop takes, the position quite inevitably simplified to position where the Russian GM was forced to defend a very unpleasant position. His position collapsed very quickly, and the Indian player showed no mercy and converted this game to a very logical win. A terrible start for the Chess 960 tournament winner, and a dream start for the Indian prodigy. Now, one of the, again, interesting games was played very early when Alain Pichot, the Argentine #1 Grandmaster, was playing against the local GM Noel Stoddard, and here black played a seemingly innocent-looking move, bishop f6. So his idea is to play e4, knight e5, and organize some kind of a counterplay at the center and the king side. Now here, white, quite unexpectedly for black, went for a pawn sacrifice, c5, d takes, and d6, sacrificing the second pawn on b4. Now white's idea is not only to play knight e5 and knight c7, but also threaten either bishop c4 or queen c4 and land one of the pieces on f7. Now it is already quite difficult to suggest something good for black, so here black decided to play b6, at least activate his pieces. And now after knight e5, rook a7, knight c7, black decided to give up the exchange for 2 pawns, but the problems only started. Now after queen c4, check, king h8, queen f7, suddenly this queen on f7 is simply impossible to get rid of. Now after queen d8, the Argentine Grandmaster found yet another nice resource. Bishop takes on a6. Now black cannot take it. There's going to be rook takes on d7 and a mate on h7. Now after rook e7, the game was finished in style by sacrificing a queen. Queen takes on f6, and after knight f6, rook takes on d8. White is up a whole rook, thus black resigned. Arturs Neikšāns indeed was on fire the entire tournament, and he was seeking for some redemption for the relative bleak result in the Chess 960 tournament. And here, very early against Boris Gelfand, he played a very sharp line in the Catalan b5, a4, and b4. And typically, white plays something like knight f to d2 or knight e2, sacrificing the pawn on d4. And here the Israeli Grandmaster played knight e5, now which is not the main move in the position. Now Sarin very quickly played queen takes on d4, bishop a8, and queen e5, effectively sacrificing an exchange for 2 pawns. Now any white's queen takes on c4 needs to be reckoned with bishop a6, attacking the queen and the pawn on e2 as well. Now, Gelfand here played bishop f4, queen h5, and bishop f3, trying to solidify the position. Now after knight g4, black is threatening with a mate, leaving white with no choice but to take it, and knight e2. Now, just when things seem to be completely in control for white, here black unleashed an amazing idea. He played e5, sacrificing a pawn for initiative. Now, after bishop takes on e5, knight c6, white starts to experience some issues, because if the bishop retreats, there's going to be knight e4 and knight takes on e2. Combined with bishop b7 and the white king is not going to be feeling really well. Knight takes on c4 is the obvious choice, and now after queen e6, white needs to pick a very difficult defense of bishop takes on c7 and understand what is happening after knight e4, knight e2, and bishop b7. Now, this was still the lesser evil. However, the experienced grandmaster played bishop takes on g7, king g7, rook d1, and his position very quickly collapsed because the young Indian player got very powerful bishops, which combined against the weakened white king leads to a demise for white. Gelfand was fighting until then for a long time, but Sarin in then scored a well-deserved win. Now, Gelfand got his redemption back, at least in one of the next games against the young German prodigy Vincent Keymer. He was pushing a drawn endgame for a long time until they reached the following position. Now here, the German player, he played rook e4, trying to escape to some kind of a drawn endgame. After king f2, rook e5, bishop e5, the question is, how does this position hold? Because white needs to make sure he's not missing h3, g takes, g3, g2. Now after knight f5, white makes sure this idea doesn't happen. And after a couple of moves, Boris imprisoned the white knight on f5 and went after it. And here white would have to pick up a very difficult defense, which was already the only move to save the game. It was knight g3, and in time scramble, Vincent simply didn't pick up this move because after knight g3, h takes, this is a fortress. Black cannot get rid of the king from h1. Now instead, Vincent played on seconds. Knight takes on h4. Unlike in the previous position, now this is not a fortress because black forces white to play g3, and after king g3 simply reaches a winning position. So the chess 960 winner Kirill Alexeyenko had a mediocre tournament because he lost his games against the top 3 finishers. He didn't make a single draw in the tournament, and for example, in this game against the local GM Noah Studer, white is threatening to play f4. In fact, white just played rook g3 to play f4, f5, and imprison the bishop. Now check out how Alexeyenko played here. He ignored the threat, just played knight e6, threatening of his own, knight e4, deliver a fork, and now after f4, queen e8, black is fine to trade 2 light pieces at some point for the rook. So now after rook e3, queen takes on a4, f5. Quite unexpectedly for white, Alexeyenko sacrificed the piece on g6 for so many pawns, and after knight takes on c4, bishop takes, queen takes, white had no choice but to accept the bishop on g6, queen g4, king h2, queen h4, black got many pawns for the sacrifice piece and was able to score a very important point in the end. So the tournament winner was Gata Kamsky, who played quietly, solid chess from the start. He started 5 points out of 5, slowly but carefully outplaying his opposition. Now this was one of his victories against Alain Pichot. So here a quiet London happened in the opening, and here the Argentine grandmaster played the very aggressive queen b6, trying to punish white immediately for his chosen strategy. Now after d takes on c5, queen takes on b2 was a very aggressive approach, rook b1, queen c3, black is attacking the pawn on c5, but white is quite happy to sacrifice it and gain a considerable lead in development. Now after g6, short castle, bishop g7, and knight e4. Now here, black had to play bishop d7 to defend the knight on c6. Now instead, the Argentine grandmaster believed that the pawn on c5 can be taken. Now it met a very nice refutation. After knight b3, the black queen needs to defend the knight on c6. So here, after queen b6, knight a5 was a very nice shot. So white already is threatened to play bishop takes on c6 or knight takes on c6, so black simply doesn't have a choice but to take on a5. Now after knight takes on c6, again black doesn't have a choice because knight a7, knight c8 or knight e5, they're huge threats. And after b takes, bishop takes, black sacrificed an exchange, and Kamsky went on to convert this game, although with some adventures, but still a very nice victory for Gata. In the 6th round, there was a fight between the leaders. Kamsky was leading the tournament 5 points out of 5, the perfect score, and he needed to hold this position with the black pieces against the Indian prodigy Arturs Neikšāns, and Arturs was indeed pushing this position. Now, white had a considerable advantage, and he probably should have played something like f4, rook f2, and think about either to push f5 right away or prepare to play g4 and then play f5. Now, Neikšāns had the idea, but he started it wrongly. He played g4. His idea was to prepare this idea of push f4, f5, or maybe play h5 next, but this allowed black to make a very nice defensive resource h5, stopping all of white's ideas, also hinting himself to take on g4 and also establish after f takes an outpost on e4. So Neikšāns decided to close the position with g5, probably something he didn't intend to do at the start, and the position very soon got a closed character, and the position inevitably led to a draw after mass trades and on f5, and the position was agreed to a draw. Finally, the last round. So Gata had won the tournament 1 round to spare, 5.5 points out of 6. And in the final round, he was meeting the German prodigy Vincent Keymer. And at the opening, the German had completely misplayed the opening. He tried to improvise, obviously quite not happy with his score in the rapid tournament, but ended up in a terrible position. However, it was the American GM who misplayed the position, and he appeared to be in this terrible endgame. Now here white probably had to understand that the pawn on a4 is gone, and he needs to activate the bishop on h2 and play g3. g3, f takes, bishop a4, bishop d6, although after rook a7, black is still controlling the game. Now instead, Kamsky played rook a1, meeting rook b8 with b4, and this was his idea, to sacrifice the pawn on b4 so that after the trade he can organize a counterplay at the queenside. Now this is the moment when the tournament winner missed a very nice counter shot by the young German player, d4. Now quite inevitably, black establishes a pass pawn, should it be b takes or b5, d3, d2 is incoming, or if white plays c takes on d4, black takes on b4 and pushes forward the pawn. Now b5 was the last attempt, and after d3, the d pawn is unstoppable. So after a couple of moves, the American GM had to concede, and the German player scored very nice morale-boosting victory in the final round. So let's check the standings after the rapid section. So this is the tournament table of the rapid tournament. Gata Kamsky, despite a loss in the final round, takes the victory in the rapid tournament of the Grandmaster Triathlon, 5.5 points out of 7, although probably he is not really happy with the result in the final round. Arturs Neikšāns scored a very important victory in the 7th round against his direct competitor Maxime Lagarde, who completely misplayed the opening, apparently mixing up the order of the moves in a known position, and ended up in a suffering position which he didn't hold. So Maxime Lagarde is 4.5 points. 3rd place, Chess 960 tournament winner Kirill Alexeyenko had a disappointing tournament, losing to the top 3 finishers. However, he finished 4 points out of 7 and in 4th place. Vincent Keymer is in 5th place with 3 points. Alain Pichot, 6th place, 2.5 points. And quite surprisingly, the chess legend Boris Gelfand was only on 7th place, occasionally blundering material in time trouble, 2 points out of 7. And the local Grandmaster Noel Studer is at 8th place with 1.5 points, however, having scored 50% against top 3 finishers. And quite curiously is that from 28 games, 16 games were won by Black with just 3 draws. Especially notable is round 4 when Black won all of the games. Now here's the overall rankings of the triathlon. So the rapid tournament is part of the triathlon, one of the 3 tournaments. Every victory was 2 points, every draw was 1 point, and Gata Kamsky leads the tournament, but probably he is slightly regretting what happened in the final round because this might cost him slightly in the overall rankings. So the tournament resumes on Monday when the start is given to the Masters Open tournament and other tournaments as well. The Grandmaster tournament resumes on Tuesday when the classical games are starting. Hope you're enjoying this so far. If you like it, please click like and follow the channel, and see you in the next coverage.